Behind me are 62 cars spread across 3 different racing classes that are going to go flat out twice around the clock in this awesome circuit. Welcome to the 2026 24 Hours of Le Mans, the longest day in motorsport.
Since 1923, Le Mans has been the ultimate test for both drivers and car makers because it puts an onus on speed as well as reliability and efficiency. That's why it has attracted the biggest drivers and the biggest car makers. And in 2026, there's a new player, Genesis, the South Korean luxury brand.
This is the reason Genesis has brought us to Le Mans. When the green flag drops, they become the first South Korean brand to race at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and that is huge for a company that is trying to put itself on the luxury car map by being more dynamic and more performance oriented than they've ever been before, and that is something to be really celebrated if you're a car fan.
However, it was going to be a massive challenge for Genesis because they'd only had 2 warm-up races with their new hypercar. But before they get underway, there's the grid walk, the most hectic and packed grid walk I've ever been a part of. Seriously, there are hundreds if not thousands of people all over the grid, but if you're lucky, you might bump into a few famous faces, including Le Mans legend Jackie Ickx, who's a Genesis Magma ambassador these days. But then it's time for all the hangers-on to bugger off and for the drivers to get strapped in and ready for the start of this amazing race. And as you can see from this onboard footage from one of the Genesis Magma entries, these guys do not stuff about. This is the start of the race. The green flag has dropped and they are going to dive into the first corner 3 wide. This may be a long race, a test of endurance, but there is no slacking off. The drivers race flat out for all 24 hours.
6 heures de Spa avec le retour de l'équipage.
So to understand what makes Le Mans special, you need someone who's been here, done that, won the race in class, finished on the podium last year. Matt Campbell, what makes Le Mans such a special race?
Yeah, it's hard to explain. I mean, obviously it's one of the most historic sports car and endurance races around the entire world. And I've been lucky enough to, as you say, win it before, come second overall last year, so I've been very, very close, unfortunately, to win it overall. But it's so different to any other endurance race. Also, the track is so unique. You know, for sure it's one of the big 4, as we say, in endurance racing, but it's so different to anywhere else. You've got the consistent long straights, very high average speed, and for sure it's a very short night time as well. You know, the time of year, very short night, and the history of this event is unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know, I've been very fortunate to be here for many years with Porsche, their history at the event, and obviously now wearing blue from 2027. They've got a lot of history at the event from the early days, so yeah, I mean, it's hard to put into words. You really need to come here and feel it. I mean, my first time ever at Le Mans was 2017 when I was Porsche Junior. I snuck into the top grandstand. You hear the music and the build-up, and it's a completely different feeling, and every year it gives you goosebumps.
Yeah. Is it the best race in the world, you think?
It's up there. Yeah. I would say now that I've been so close to an overall victory here, you know, it's my biggest target of my career to try and win this race. I definitely say at the moment it's my number 1 in terms of top endurance car racing with top level prototype as well. You know, there's some fantastic GT3 events out there, but for sure this one is probably number 1 at the moment.
Even as I chat to Matt, the race doesn't stop. It just keeps going and going. And for Genesis, it's going pretty well in the early stages. Both cars qualified at the front of the field, and they're running pretty well in the first few hours of the race. But the race just keeps going, and soon the afternoon turns to dusk and they drive into this difficult period with the sun before dusk turns to night. And again, they just keep racing. It's such an amazing event. Some people sort of scarcely believe when you explain to them that the race goes for 24 hours, that it really does continue all through the night, non-stop. Unfortunately, for this particular spectator, I did have to make a bit of an overnight pit stop. Thankfully, Genesis had these glamping tents set up for us where I could catch a few hours sleep and then get up in the morning, have a bit of shower, brush the teeth, and then back trackside for breakfast for a cup of tea with the ultimate view. Look at this. This is 5 a.m. at Le Mans. Wouldn't be anywhere else. Wow, I wouldn't mind being here behind the wheel of one of the Genesis Magma hypercars. But I was grateful that I didn't have to catch some sleep in one of these random chairs in the paddock like these hardcore fans. Although these hardcore fans made an even smarter decision perhaps, and were just waiting for the bar to be hosed out at about 6:30 in the morning on a Sunday so they could just keep drinking. But of course the drivers, well, it's just water for them as they race on through the dawn into Sunday. Unfortunately, this particular YouTuber may have struck some problems at this point, achieving a certain period of deliriousness, I guess, when I found these chairs.
Not the comfortablest chair, but I can see why Dr. Evil liked them. Seems appropriate to have a Dr. Evil style chair for Genesis Magma Racing. Disappointed that I actually didn't bring Mike Myers, now that you think about it. Should have brought Mike Myers as Dr. Evil. Could be a good brand ambassador, just saying.
I'll spare the rest of this rant because there's something more interesting to do next.
Okay, we are deep in the race at Le Mans now, but we're going to do something really cool. So even though the team is on track trying to finish their first Le Mans, we're going to go behind the scenes at the Genesis Magma Racing pits. So come with us for this behind the scenes access.
First up, we get a little bit of a behind-the-scenes tour of some of the equipment, have a look at a driver's helmet, which is all pretty cool, check the engineering room, but then we get down to the work face. Now, these guys naturally have been working for, really at this point, nearly 2 days of some stuff, which is why they go through this routine. This not only helps them get sort of warmed up physically to do a pit stop, but also gets them mentally alert and ready to go, because these pit stops are highly choreographed. And we can see on board here, this is the car coming in for its stop. Now, they need to do everything. They need to refuel, put a new set of tyres on, and in this instance, change the driver. So you can see he leaps out pretty quick. The next driver chucks in his little inserts, because it's obviously 3 drivers sharing the car. Slides on in, and now this helper here is going to help him get the seat belts buckled up, because basically the driver can't see. These cabins are so small in these cars. For aerodynamics, they make them as tiny as possible, so it's incredibly cramped. But simply buckled up, quick tighten, grab a gear, away he goes. That's how quick these stops go. There really is no time to spare at Le Mans for even a single second.
Just to give you a scale of how big the Le Mans 24 Hours is, take a look at the paddock. This is actually divided into 2 separate paddock areas. What you see down this row, well, that is just the garage. That's the operational side, the racing side of the week. On down this side, that's the hospitality. That's the corporate hospitality. It's purely for the teams in many cases, as in they will then have separate hospitality suites, like Genesis has kindly invited them into their separate suite, which is about 1 kilometre that way, because again, it's a 13-kilometre circuit. It's massive, the scale of this joint. So they'll have this row down here, you see, that'll have space to eat meals for the crew, but also have sleeping quarters for the drivers, because they're here the whole race. They need to rest, they need soundproofing, so they'll have their own personal areas where they can rest and relax, while everyone on this side is working flat out, not just for 24 hours, but the whole week of Le Mans. Now, Le Mans is more than just a race. Technically, it's a town in France, but the circuit itself becomes a city on its own, in its own right. There are so many people here. It's a 13-kilometre circuit, literally the Mulsanne Straight that they are racing down as I speak to you in this video. That's the regular freeway. So they closed down part of it, and just thousands and thousands and thousands of people move in. So you have this is the village, right? This is where you can get food, drink, souvenirs, but it's one small part of this entire, mini city that pops up every year in France.
And as a random bonus, I was actually interviewed by Korean television about Genesis' debut at Le Mans.
And this behind me is really what this whole Genesis Magma Racing thing's about. This is their display, their effectively small showroom in part of the manufacturer's village here. They are literally alongside Toyota, Porsche, BMW, Ford, Alpine, McLaren. They're putting themselves on the map with people. There's literally people queuing to go and look at a Genesis. That's incredibly important here in Europe, but also in places like Australia where the brand is still basically super tiny, right? They sold 1,600 cars in Australia last year. So they need something like winning motor races and building sports cars that are going to drag people's attention to the brand. And as you can see, it seems to be working already.
Now, by this stage, we're actually getting into the final few hours of the race. Unfortunately, Genesis car number 17 didn't make the finish. It had a mechanical problem that dropped it out with only, really less than half of the race to go. But car 19 was still circulating. You can see here the crew was incredibly nervous to try and get the car to the finish to actually just, they may not have won, they may not have finished on the podium, but just to finish this particular race is a massive achievement. As you can probably tell, it is a huge undertaking. It is a massive strain on the drivers, the team, the crew, the engineers, everybody. So this moment here for Genesis is what the last year of development is all about. But hopefully for them, it's only the beginning of future success. The actual winners were Toyota, which took their 6th outright victory at Le Mans, their first since 2022, and arguably their most impressive yet, given how intense the competition is. But again, for Genesis just to bring a car home to the finish in only its 3rd motor race is a super impressive achievement.
All right, I'm exhausted. The race is done. The checker flag's been waved. Honestly, I'm so tired. It's been such a long day and night, another day. I don't know how they do it. And yet they have. It's the ultimate test in motorsport. A huge congratulations to Toyota. You can hear the podium, you see that this is the fans are flooding in to congratulate all of the winners and the runners-up and frankly the finishers. I mean, huge congratulations to Toyota for winning another Le Mans 24 hours, but a huge congratulations to every single team, every man and woman that finished this race, because it is such a test of stamina and speed and strength and will and, overcoming tiredness. Because frankly, I'm exhausted and all I did was watch. This is the way to get around Le Mans, though, isn't it? Golf buggy or bike or train.
Very fast this one.
Oh, you got the slow one now?
Yes.